rehashing broken record kind of conversations about the new play machine and supply and demand and whatnot. So I went to dinner with Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, and we started talking about this idea, and Brandon had this notion for a while that he wanted to start emailing people and start an epic email thread with a group of people. And so we sort of narrowed it down to encapsulate a group of 5 playwrights who we felt really captured the sort of super contemporary moment in American playwriting, and we're all artists that we loved and respected, and we got our dream team, who are Max Posner, Annie Baker, Ann Washburn, Sybil Kimson, and Brandon. And so from the, starting in the summer of 2013, they started an email conversation amongst the 5 of them with literally no subject. And that carried on, and then they presented an amalgamated version of those emails at Prelude in 2013. And it was a fascinating conversation. And the Siegel Center then asked if they wanted to continue that conversation, which, very lucky for us, they said yes. And so they've been carrying on that email conversation, which evolved also into some in-person conversations, and are back here today to share with us a brand new, never-before-released amalgamation of emails and conversations that span from the summer of 2013 until now. And they are not going to be, the individuals will not be speaking any text that they themselves said or wrote, but everything that will be said was said by someone on this panel. And then after they present to us, we'll have a response opportunity at the end, but I'll speak more about that at that time. So once again, thank you for coming. Thank you all, and enjoy.
Emails. Summer of 2013 through summer of 2014. Regarding God, I have no clue. And yet, upon further reflection, I believe I've spent a lot of time sterilizing myself of all superstitions and spiritual tensions. But a confession, confidential. I totally pray. Not every month, but many months. I don't realize I'm doing it until I'm doing it, and it happens in a very traditional way, not unlike the way orphans pray in movies. I clasp my hands together and say actual words in my head addressed to an actual God. I've told maybe 3 people about this ever, because I think it most definitely signals some weakness, especially given the fact that I walk through my day as a staunchly practical atheist. I think contradictions, when they are truthful, are spiritual.
I can't say I go to church or can even name/articulate my beliefs, but I also believe that the inability/resistance to articulation is a part of my belief system in some way. I have a strange fear of name/language when it comes to internal experience, but of course, as I type that out, I think to myself, are you an insane hypocrite? Because I am also obsessed with therapy, and this whole fucking form is about external expression of inward states, so I roll.
I actually wound up dating basically nothing but dancers well into my mid-20s, and I saw dance more than anything when I moved to New York. And actually, when people ask me that retarded question about who my influences are, I inevitably think about choreographers, but then I stop myself because I'm like, this person has no idea who I'm talking about. And then I say something like, oh, Anton Chekhov, which is true, but not that true, or only half true. No, wait, it's true.
From what I know of all our work, we don't have a specific political agenda most of the time. I feel like we worship Beckett more than Brecht. I'm more interested in the capturing than the saying, maybe. But in life, as people, in what way am I engaged in politics? This question stresses me out, because I feel like the answer is a bit sad, like I'm pretty passive and inarticulate about what it means to be political in a meaningful, personal, productive way. And you?
Or does writing do nothing? Do you think we're just spinning our wheels? All writers or just playwrights? And all playwrights or specific kinds of playwrights? Wait, unless you're talking about writing as an object as opposed to an action, are you saying that literature and drama are bougie nothingness / a luxury / an expensive hobby? Do you think anything you do is meaningful? Do you care? Don't feel the need to answer all these questions.
I do think theater is a holy practice. I mean, hideously compromised, but a holy practice nonetheless, and probably no more compromise than lots of others.
I want there to be a Sybil Kimson play on Broadway.
At a cue mysterious to me, the whole thing was in Russian or Ukrainian. Everyone stood, and he approached the altar and opened a door in it and went through, more singing. Then after a moment opened a large gate to reveal a holier area, I suppose the actual altar, with very large electric candles upon it and an object. Everyone was crossing themselves a lot, often, and although I am always dying to cross myself, I didn't, partly from respect, because for me to do it for the love of the drama of the gesture felt sacrilegious, and I didn't want to be that, and partly because I couldn't get a proper view of what exactly people were doing, and I know there are schisms over where exactly your fingers land on your body and if you end up at the center or not. I thought that would be awkward. Later, I wished I had just begun faking it from the get-go because it felt increasingly conspicuous that I wasn't, and I couldn't help but feel that the old and devout lady next to me noticed and was disturbed and distracted by it, though that was most probably my imagination. Anyway, at one point, I suddenly thought of all of you. Dinner? My place in February?
I think dinner in February would be fun.
The last part, about theater privileging itself over other mediums, made me so sad and made me think about talkbacks. Why theater, we're always asked. What's so special about theater?
It's like the Special Olympics of art forms.
It's also about raising money too, right? Like implicitly during talkbacks and panels, and even what we're doing, on some level, we're being asked to justify and privilege and nurture this special, privileged, needy thing so people will give more money to it so it won't die.
I've been thinking about enemies, and if there is any use in cultivating strong and potentially thoughtful rivalries with other artists. As a non-confrontational person who generally thinks everyone is doing their best and should be left alone, I feel resistant to the idea, but I wonder if there is a kind of productive enemyship that could exist and breathe a little juice and substance into the current landscape. Does this exist? Is this an immature thought? And recently I discovered David Foster Wallace's very public feud with Bret Easton Ellis, and I think I read this interview where he rips apart American Psycho, and I read it in a moment where I kept encountering writing about quote-unquote horrible people and the bleakness of now, and I found it kind of inspiring, and it made me wonder if this kind of warfare might be great.
So it brings forward a thing I've got going about how the internet is destroying our lives / creativity / ability to connect / ability to reflect, and touches on both my initial resistance to this project for Prelude and my original attraction to it. Resistance because I was like, I don't want to have to do anything more on the internet than what I already have to do. An attraction to Brandon's wistful longing, which I share, for the older days of writerly letters to other writers and duchesses, baronesses, etc., in ye old patronage system. It's a longing for vastness that only gets worse, or rather stronger, with time, and also time in America driving on long distances that weren't on the East Coast, thinking so much about Sasquatch and wildness in general, and wanting to give up playwriting as I know it and do something else, and maybe keep writing plays, but only as a by the way, and a who cares, and maybe they'll find these after I'm dead, well, good for them. Maybe just burning out a little, not enough boredom. I feel like everything I'm typing here I've already said to you guys before, but it's about the land for me right now.
I saw a show of Matisse cutouts today, and there was a little bit on one of those wall thingies about how he was too fragile to go outdoors and sit in his garden, so in effect he created the natural world around him on all of his walls, which leads to another question about, does anyone else wonder about how many good art years they have left and jealously husband examples of people who are genuinely and freshly productive into their 70s and 80s? And I feel like, yes, art is something you make when you can't have the natural world, and it began as a negotiation with the natural world. And I spend a certain amount of time marveling that I'm spending so very much of what I more or less try to believe is my only life going. Oh my God, okay. And I spend a certain amount of time marveling that I am spending so very much of what I more or less try to believe is my only life going possible ever. in New York City, or cities in general, when I could be in New Mexico or Bend, Oregon, or especially I wonder, why on earth did I not become a park ranger? And I could be spending my entire life in Yosemite, particularly the backcountry above the valley, where there are very few tourists, although I think that really, when you think about it, those must be super desirable ranger positions. And getting them probably involves a lot of very intense political maneuvering, which, when you consider that the majority of park rangers are a little non-people-y in their dispositions, it is probably a rather fraught scene. I do feel like it's a choice. I feel like you can't do both. Or like you have to surface, get a deep breath of the one, and then submerge again into the other for a long time.
I feel like in my work, I'm always reaching for some sort of ecstatic state or some sort of state that feels similar to awe in the face of the vastness of everything, which is probably just stupid and pretentious, and I should stop. When I type things like this, I get a very intense feeling of shame and like I have no idea what I'm doing.
Hey, can someone give me a bit of a refresher about the nature art conversation? Have we talked about it before? You know, memory. Meanwhile, how has everyone been? Can I be the first to say I've been miserable?
I think the playwright gets isolated and has to be on the receiving end of so many forces and expectations and praise/blame. Both are different sides of the same coin as I see it. And the playwright is just a person inside a human body.
Hi, all. Just wanted to say, I've spent a couple months this summer very stuck. And every few days I have tried to think about nature and if I have anything to say about it. I am not sure I know what to say about nature. I am not sure I have seen many plays that really address nature, or nature with a capital N. I spent a handful of weeks this summer trying to write in a nature-y setting. I have had trouble feeling any urgency. A lack of urgency and plenty of time led me down many repetitive thought spirals, and not the fun kind. I became very overwhelmed by writing and had difficulty moving through it, got very claustrophobic and couldn't muster momentum or see where I was headed. I think this says more about me in this current moment than it does about nature.
Okay, I'm also forgetting what started the original nature chain.
I've been reading that Dark Mountain Project manifesto by the environmentalist dude Paul Kingston, the one who's given up and is like, we're doomed, there's nothing we can do, let's throw pagan parties in the forest. And he has that thing, the fact that we have a word for nature is part of the problem. There's like this myth that we or the cities we live in are separate from it, that we're always severing our own hand, that there's this idiotic idea we have of this separation between civilization and nature, and that's what has made us destroy our entire planet. Words like the environment, too, make us feel a kind of distance, like it's something a little farther away from us, off over the hills, deep in the forest, when in fact nature and the environment are all of us and everything. We've been thinking that nature is something that happens elsewhere, quote unquote. He says that the last myth we have to dismantle is this myth of the civilization, and he says that artists are the ones to do it.
I went on a double date recently, and the wife of my boyfriend's friend, during an awkward pause in which we were all going up an escalator, asked me, "Do you like nature?" And I said, "I think so."
I tried to talk about narrative and narrative theater and its relationship to talking about nature, and my brain started dripping out of my skull.
And in terms of writing, it is becoming this thing about asserting the very simple fact that we don't understand everything, and we need more parts of our minds and more ways of thinking to be operational in our decision-making and our communication. And just asserting that over and over again. Looking at patterns that are not human-made and trying to include them in what I'm writing. Allowing a contemplation of natural phenomena to come into what I am writing and just making people have to deal with it. Although, then when there's a 2-hour slot for reading and I don't want to torture people, I end up giving in to the human-made patterns more than I'd like to.
This email is not to put pressure on anyone, but our event is in just a little over 4 weeks. That being said, I will be the first to say that this has been an extremely busy couple of months, and I think rather than making excuses about it and trying so hard to be manic and profound in the coming weeks, I would like to suggest my original idea, that we have 4 dinner parties between now and then, or brunches, some sort of private gatherings akin to the magical evening we had last time at Anne's and Annie's.
This never happened. We had one afternoon with snacks.
I absolutely believe that there's some sort of hormone released in us during production that when everything is over disappears and leaves us incredibly susceptible to all sorts of infirmities. I really, really am not trying to become a sickly hypochondriac writer. I have suddenly become obsessed with taking care of myself, which I think has something to do with Sybil's idea of boundaries. I'm curious about if there's anything you all do for self-care. At times now, I suddenly get this flash of a vision of being physically and neurologically destroyed by something about this career choice, and I'm all, how do I avoid this? Destiny's Child, help me out. Also, very much obsessed with this phrase, the playwright is just a person in a human body. I feel like I might be using that with some frequency in the coming months.
Whenever people talk about doom, I think about the skin of our teeth. And then I'm like, okay, right, playwrights can address anything.
I have been seeing some plays, and I just think it's really interesting to sitting in a sea of people who are mostly much older, much, much older. I'm trying not to be so fully negative about this. I feel like there is some opportunity that I am not grabbing, some opportunity in my sitting in the midst of 200 people who will die much sooner than I will, and who were alive and falling in love in some era that I have only studied in history classes and seen on Mad Men. Old people love plays. If we keep calling them plays, we will keep showing them to old people. I've spent a lot of hours in despair about all of this, wanting to turn audiences into fields of young people. But maybe I don't have anything against old people. My therapist is an Upper West Side old person and an MTC subscriber, and she is so, so, so smart and thoughtful. And I would love to think of her in the audience at all of our plays, as I think she's ready to meet us in all kinds of strange places. She just isn't given the opportunity to. Confused about this, wanting to make something that barks at this question more nakedly.
A thought. What if in addition to our emails and Sybil's lost snacks, we read out loud a few pages or lines out of context, no explanation, not even saying who's the author if we don't want to, from what we're working on. And we can be like, here's a mishmash of what we're working on, and suddenly it's a hodgepodge of dialogue and song. And we'll read each other's stuff. It can be like 8 pages or just 1 line or 10 different lines from 10 different parts of the play or whatever. I used mishmash and hodgepodge in the same sentence. Jesus.
Excerpts from everything everyone is working on. 1. Murtis. I could tell you, do you know what I did last week? Jenny. What? Murtis. I memorized all the different things you can call a group of birds. Jenny. Wait, what do you mean? Murtis. For instance, a gaggle of geese. Jenny. Oh. Murtis. A congress of crows, a convocation of eagles, a team of ducks. I bet you already knew that one. A tiding of magpies, a colony of gulls, a host of sparrows, a cast of falcons. Isn't that nice? A cast? Jenny nods. Murtis moves over to the couch and sits down next to Jenny. Jenny puts her head in her lap. Maybe Murtis absent-mindedly plays with Jenny's hair a little. Murtis, a mustering of storks, a duel of doves, a sedge of cranes, a cover of coots. Jenny, wow, I can't believe you memorized all of those. Murtis, I love them. I love them. Let's see. A raft of loons, a pride of penguins, a troubling of hummingbirds, a bevy of quail, a charm of finches, an exaltation of larks. Ooh, yes, that's my favorite, an exaltation of larks. 2. Murtis, did you feel watched as a child, Elijah? Elijah, watched? Murtis, like there was someone watching over you, an unseen presence? Elijah, yeah. Murtis, you did? Elijah, yeah. Murtis, did it feel like Elijah, it was like, yeah, a watcher, yeah. Murtis, do you remember when you felt its presence for the first time? Elijah, I guess since I can remember, I mean, what Jenny failed to mention is that hot tub thing is my first memory, my very first memory. So, yeah, he was definitely there, watching that, watching over me. Pause. Elijah, I actually feel weird talking about it because I've never talked about it before, and I feel like I'm not supposed to. Pause. Murtis, the watcher doesn't want you to talk about him. It's a him. Pause. Elijah, Yeah, or like, you're not supposed to. It's like sacred, secret stuff. He shudders slightly. Elijah, Jesus, I feel weird. Does everyone feel like there's a watcher? Murtis, I don't think so. Elijah, do you feel like that when you were a kid? Watched? Murtis, oh yes. Elijah, and did you think that was God? Murtis, yes. Pause. Murtis, I have one more question. I hope you don't mind. Elijah, okay. Murtis, did you feel like on some level he was taking care of you? Elijah, yeah. I felt like he was watching and seeing, and yeah, when good stuff happened, I felt like he was giving it to me as a reward for making it through the bad stuff. But then when bad stuff happened, when bad stuff still happens, I wonder if he's punishing me for being an asshole. Pause. Elijah, I sound like I'm religious. I'm not religious at all. I come from a family of Jewish atheists.
Electrician 2. James, did you pick up... Electrician 2. James, did you pick up that X-Acto from the table or did someone else? Electrician 1. Nope. Electrician 2. It's not there at all. Director. Are we still waiting for the sound to build? Stage manager. Yep. There's a low drone for a moment. Then it fades out. Something shifts with the lights, shifts back. New insect sound. Electrician 2. Did anyone pick up a yellow box cutter X-Acto knife from this table? AD. Robert, are those cicadas? Sound. Uh-huh. AD. Thought so. I remember the first time I saw a cicada. I was 4. I thought it was an alien. Robert. They're big. Cicada sounds speed up. Take it to 40. Cicada sounds pump up. Electrician 2. Did you pick up that X-Acto from the table? Because without it, I am not able to do my tasks, all of my tasks, as I am asked. Sound. We built? Sound op. Just another sec. ASM is sweeping up again. Noise effect up fulsomely. ASM goes to lip of stage with broom and leans over, talking to SM, who is on the ground level. Sound. Could you give me more bottom to that thunder cue? Can you fill out the bottom? Pause. Big bottom, my gal's got 'em. Oh, and totally kill 20 while you're at it too.
To find out who they really were, one will have to climb up and visit their holy grounds, their sacred groves, and sit there for a long time, and sleep there, surrounded by the wild boar herd, and gradually begin to intuit them, their thoughts, and what they did.
One week from today, as in 7 days from this second, I will be in hell. I will have been killed or died. I will have died by bike accident or suicide. Although I'm not the sort of guy to kill myself, which you should keep in mind. I'm very rational, and I love my wife. And people spend the money I make. They would die without the money I make. If I didn't make it, they would be really, really sad. They would wear sad clothes. They would have to eat grass. They would have to live differently, without expenses. But they would still have expenses, increasing every month without me. And money aside, I'm not the suicide type. More of a bike accident, more of a concrete splat, more of an idiot accident type of thing. And regarding suicide, I actually just don't have sad emotions. Don't have them, sad emotions. I mostly just shave. And I am a morning person, which, as you probably know, means I am much less likely to commit suicide than all of you. Than all of you who hate the morning. Than all of you whose first thought each day is no or stop. My first thought is more, more, more. If I had dementia, I could throw poop everywhere, I could say I thought we were in the middle of the battlefield. I thought it was a grenade. I thought you were Hitler. I thought I was Tom Hanks. I am so sorry, Donna. I am so sorry I got poop all over your window. I am so sorry it landed perfectly on your senile boyfriend on his Jewish nose. Is your boyfriend like me, Donna? Has he taught anything to read? Sorry I thought you were Stalin. I have dementia. Sorry about the poop. Happy birthday, gotta go. Happy birthday, gotta go. Happy birthday, gotta go. Happy birthday, gotta go.
So, you know, the first thing I thought was, this is a scam. Because when I first started using email, every couple of weeks, for whatever reason, I was getting emails from some random Nigerian asking me for money. I called my son up. I said, now, Tate, how did all of these Nigerians get my email address? I mean, I have just set the thing up. And I would write them back. I would write back, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to hear that you are stranded in Nigeria or wherever you've stranded yourself, but I don't know you, and I just can't be giving you money when I don't know you. And frankly, I don't buy this whole diamond business. I know there's supposed to be diamonds in Africa, but I am not a diamond specialist, so please don't be reaching out to me about any diamonds, man. Please. But these Nigerians, they won't quit. I couldn't tell you if there was some sort of a situation. I've met some Nigerian somewhere at a party or something, and maybe I'd impressed him, and maybe he thought I was a nice person, and so he felt that he could reach out to me, and maybe back in Nigeria there's some sort of custom where it's okay to give out people's email addresses if someone is asking you for recommendations for nice Americans, or listen, I don't know. Point being, suddenly all these Nigerians were asking me for the same thing, money to bail them out of something. And that's when I began to find email annoying. The afternoon with snacks.
Where are you guys on Bigfoot?
I don't believe in Bigfoot.
I think there's a possibility. I want to hear more.
I need more info.
Okay. So I've been really obsessed with Bigfoot for like my whole life. Like since I saw Leonard Nimoy in Searcher when I was a kid, and I was like, Dad, what is that? And he was like, oh, well, people think they see something, but there's a perfectly reasonable scientific explanation. I was a little kid. I don't know why they were making me watch those shows. And my dad was like, oh, well, it's probably not anything. And I'm like, why are they then presenting it in this way that's telling me that it is definitely something? I'm going to smash this. I'm going to smash these together. Bigfoot, Frankenstein's monster. They're both outsiders. They're both ugly. People are scared of them. They're big. They're watching us all the time.
They're gentle monsters.
Until you piss them off.
Or sexually excite them.
What?
Yeah, I feel like when I think Bigfoot, I think rapist.
We signed up to go on a Bigfoot research expedition. They do these expeditions, and at the last moment, we chickened out.
What?
Eleanor was afraid of getting raped.
There's a guide, right?
Who is the guide?
Maybe the guide is who you should be afraid of.
So I was like, we will go on an all-women's one.
That actually sounds more like a rape trap than anything else.
For Bigfoot?
Yeah, kidnapping all of these women in a group who all claim to be looking for Bigfoot.
She deposits them at the cave.
Does anyone find Bigfoot when they set out to look for him, or is it more of a he finds you?
He finds you.
The discussion we were having before you came in was about how everyone feels burdened by multiple projects and what that juggling thing is. So it's also a little bit, this is a snapshot of our brains.
I think it's that all of the things you actually have in your hand right now are somehow represented, maybe. So maybe that's one thing, if you're lucky, but it's probably like 5.
So the prelude thing starts at 6:30. Should we meet at 3?
But the game of it is if you can figure out whose voice is whose.
I teach till 4:30 and I'm going to race down there.
I teach until 3:45, but I can get there by 4:30, 4:45.
Look at the sleepy dog.
I told you he'd flop over.
He's so cute.
Did you drug him with whatever that twisty thing was?
And so we need to, at some point, start generating content, and then we need to get it to a professional transcriber, and we'll all go in, possibly $25, $30 each.
I think I may have a lead on someone.
There's definitely stuff we didn't say in the public thing last time. We used such a fraction of our actual conversations.
We did, and we were much simpler because we had not done it before, and we were only on email. And we were fresh and eager to the whole thing. There was a lovely innocence, but also an interconnectedness to those things, which we've lost now. Now we're like if Emily Dickinson had gone out if Emily Dickinson had gone out into the world and gone to a lot more dinner parties and gotten a lot more jaded in terms of the conversation. Do you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Also, it feels like is that recording yet?
Uh-huh.
That we should have on tape. That thing about we're not reading our own words, that no one is saying what we're actually saying. So now it's on tape.
Yep.
So I guess those are my 3 top things. And I'm going to start my own theater company, I guess. That's the next.
What?
Yeah, can we talk to start your own theater?
And what is it?
And what's your Wi-Fi password? And can I have some water?
I always feel like I'm back to the wall trying to defend what I've written. I'm like, what would have to happen if I didn't have to spend that time?
Do you want seltzer or water?
Regular water.
In the way that you wouldn't have to justify the project for the first week of the project.
And the Wi-Fi password is complicated and I have to look it up.
Okay.
I'm going to go pee.
I'm obsessed with the fact that you're adapting the wild duck.
Yeah, me too.
It seems sort of unadaptable.
I've had this sort of fantasy. There are writers' groups and labs and things where one gets feedback, but it's a very gentle kind of feedback, and we are gentle with each other because we're in a world where we're surrounded by ungentle feedback and square feedback. And once you have a play in the world, 6 million people have an opinion about it, and that's too many opinions to cope with. But I feel like there's this other area of feedback which I'm not getting. I would like to take a play and give it to some select group of people and have them actually say candid, possibly hurtful things about the play, which will help me grow as an artist or possibly make the play better. But it's hard to work at how to make that happen because we're all, as colleagues, really careful with each other.
It's so lonely to have a play produced and have everyone come and say nice things afterward. And then the people you don't want, like your aunt, is honest about it. Like my aunt is the one person who's like, that play made me anxious. That's actually her comment on my work. But sometimes these brilliant people come to see my plays, like all of you, like all 4 of you come to see my plays, and you're like, great job, that was great. And then you leave, and I would just die to get you all in a room and be like, no, no, no. I'm strong enough to really be like, what did you really not like about it? Just tell me. I can take it. And it would really help me with my next project if I could just know what you secretly hated about my play and what you secretly loved more than anything. That too. But that thing of, if you and me went to see Max's play, what we'd say on the subway home, we'd be like, well, that part's really great, but what he doesn't realize, it's always like, what he doesn't realize is he doesn't need that. But we never say that to Max after his play.
Well, Max would have to ask super specifically for that feedback, and I have this complete same urge. There's also this total thing where, like, I've seen people's plays and it sucked, and I don't know if it's the play or the production. They're in the middle of a hugely emotional process. They have loyalties or disloyalties to the director and the actors, and like how you sort through the thing of what the thing is.
I feel like it would have to be after it was over, a post-mortem for your next project.
Before the play goes into production, there's a kind of feedback which can be helpful, but it's also coming from a place of much greater ignorance. At the beginning of previews, there's a kind of level of comment which can be great if you hit the right pitch and do it in the right emotional tone so the person can hear it through the anxiety. And then post-mortem afterward, but afterward you're in a state of trauma, whether it went well or badly, for 6 months afterwards.
I don't even realize it happened until 6 months have passed.
I also think that I need the conversation on the subway, for better or worse, where the artist isn't there to sort of form my in-depth thoughts sometimes. I feel like I don't always do that well alone, or talking to the artist. I feel like part of it is just going like, huh, with someone for a while, and then it's almost its own creative process.
I don't know, man, it's hard. I'm randomly reading Great Expectations because I never have, and I'm like, he wrote this so fast, surrounded by children, and he didn't know where it was going, ever.
Yeah, but he had a wife. Imagine if we all had wives.
That's true.
But was she really helping out all that much?
Probably.
I bet.
Wouldn't it be amazing if we all had wives and maids?
Yeah, then it doesn't matter if you have kids.
Like this whole spread, my wife could have just done it. You guys wouldn't have had to bring anything.
And it would be way better.
And she comes in and out.
Can I get you guys anything?
She puts her hand on my shoulder.
Where's the manuscript? Oh, I'll print it out.
My wife will transcribe all of this.
And she'll edit it.
All my favorite male authors have wives. They would just write it longhand or even say it, and their wives would Vera Nabokov, you know? Almost throwing the book into the fire in the backyard in a moment of shame, like, no, don't, honey, it's good. Show it to someone.
Writing all of your grant applications for you.
Is that Nabokov?
Yeah, it's something like he was almost about to burn Pale Fire or Lolita, and she was like, honey, I think it's really good.
It was always the same structure. Got married really young, had kids, was horrible to wife, substance abuse issue, then he leaves her, marries his second wife, and under her careful watch, his career flourishes.
Well, that was back in the days when you couldn't have sex before marriage, so people got married young.
Good point, good point.
And birth control.
Imagine if you married the very first person you ever had sex with.
Oh, God.
My mom did that.
Do you know for a fact that your mom hasn't had sex with anyone else?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Honestly, I think about it all the time.
Has your dad had sex with anyone else?
Yeah, as a really adult person. As a really adult young person, and the one to have gone through a really intense breakup at an actual. As a really young person, I am the only one to have gone through a really intense breakup at an actual adult age.
I think it's like mind forming. You have to go through one.
But she didn't, and I've met her. She's lovely.
She had like a gay high school boyfriend.
That's sweet.
There were these two Christian kids. They're like 16 or 18 or something, and they both independently said to their parents, I think God wants me to be with that person. And then they got together, and they were going to get married, and they were so young and very Christian about it. But then they said this thing, which I did think was sort of beautiful and actually very persuasive, which is that dating is just practicing heartbreak. It's getting used to heartbreak. This way, you glom onto someone and you never break your heart, you have an intact heart, and you're healthier that way. I thought that was sort of persuasive. I mean, too late for most everyone.
This idea of realizing too late what love actually feels like.
You mean?
When you experience actual...
Non-suffocation. You know, your brain suddenly, you can conceive of what this thing is that you thought you knew.
Right, you're actually experiencing the thing that everyone else is talking about. Like you do the outer stuff. It's like when someone's sick and you just do the stuff that you see them do in movies, like put a cold cloth on their head, put them in a bath of ice cubes.
There must be some kind of online transcription thing, where someone in like Uzbekistan, you can just email this to them.
I really want to do something where you can come late and leave early, and it's not a fuck you to the actors. I also feel like sometimes people, to say they don't like it, will get up and leave. It's almost like it becomes a performance. Or during leaving, or leaving during intermission becomes very performative. There's a whole, I'm leaving, and I'm interested in a thing that's like, leave anytime.
There's a Pluto thing happening astrologically right now.
I know so many people who are sick and dying right now.
They just pulled all his medication out and were like, okay, we're just going to allow him to exist in this double reality. And that was his way out. And we met with a hospice lady, an end-of-life care lady in Sarasota when we were there. And she was like, I can't tell you. I have been here with people and families for hundreds and hundreds of deaths. And I wish I could tell you what percentage of them have the same like journey thing going on.
It's often like getting on a ship or the ship.
Or I'm not ready to go. I can't find my keys.
Horror is moving through my veins right now.
I actually find that weirdly comforting.
Pluto is death and transformation and sex. So probably people are having a lot of sex, too.
Part of buying something is a conversation, an interaction with someone. So I'm trying to write this play that's very, and I still haven't changed the names. And I keep being like, tomorrow I'm going to change the names.
Henry James is a failed playwright. Isn't that amazing? Anne Dickens. Isn't that amazing?
Really?
Yeah, they were both obsessed with writing for the stage. They couldn't hack it. And so they revolutionized the novel instead. But if you look at the structure of his novels, they're like classic melodramas.
I should read that because I feel like, and it's kind of a Greek tragedy thing.
Family sagas, you guys. I'm obsessed with family sagas. I can't stop reading them.
Yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with them too. And also I feel like I've never written that directly about money, and I'm really frightened.
I've just been reading this book, Sempre Susan. It's this biography written about Susan Sontag by this other writer, Sigrid Nunez, who dated her son and lived in the apartment with them.
Oh, right, and she was like terrible to her.
Yeah, she was terrible to her, but also great to her in some ways too. And one of the things that she said was, I've seen most of the great writers of my generation destroyed by teaching.
Whoa.
Yeah.
When I was in elementary school, you could get an American Girl doll that was made to look like you. So this girl, Tamika, because she was wealthy, she got one, and it was made to look like her. But you can only really dress them with the stuff other American Girl dolls have. And so she bought all the stuff for, like, Addie, the slave, and she didn't totally understand that she could have, it was so weird.
So it was her dressed up as a slave in doll form.
Yeah, because she loved the Addie book so much. And it was like, you got yourself the cotton, the meat pie, and the bucket. You could have had, like, Molly had this amazing layered cake, and Addie had a meat pie and a bucket. Kristen had this beautiful bed with canopies, but Addie had a cot.
I almost feel like it's not a good idea to give kids toys.
Every time someone gave me a stuffed animal, it was this incredible burden.
I used to have the Fisher-Price airport, and it came with a plane, and you'd fly to different parts of the country.
I remember play as so stressful. I guess it's like putting on a play. It's like what I want to do. I'm compelled to create these worlds and then control it. And then in rehearsals, I'm just puking and wanting to die the whole time. And that was the same way playing as a child. Like, these things I've staged are rebelling, and they're coming to get me.
I just had this really profound moment in rehearsals. This thing keeps happening when I write these plays about family, where the actors want to be like, what's the relationship to religion? They always ask me that in table work. And I'm like, well, I think I'm going to let that be a choice. But my impulse in writing them is, like, some of them I can feel that they go to church, but I've never written a very pious person, I don't think, in my work. And then I had this one character start philosophizing about God, and I freaked out because I was like, this is really deeply sacrilege, because in this context, I'm God to these made-up people. So what does it mean to have these characters? It was very weird. I couldn't get past that wall. I was like, I can't make these people talk about me. I think that's a weird complex or something.
That's funny. You think you're God to the people in your plays.
I inflict circumstances on them that are ultimately artificial that they have to deal with and respond to emotionally. And so I can't have a character be like, why is the universe doing this to me? Because I'm like, I'm doing this to you because I want the audience to have a relationship to what's going on. That's like one of the weird paradoxes of writing that I can't seem to get through.
You're somewhere and you start to get a creepy, creeped out feeling. You feel like you're being watched. You feel like you should leave. You get an overwhelming feeling like, I shouldn't be here. I'm not welcome here. I should leave. The hair stands up on the back of your neck. Sometimes you get a really bad smell, and then you'll look up and you'll hear footsteps, or you'll see, or shit is getting thrown at you.
I've never heard trees make these noises. It sounds like they're farting.
Oh, tree farts.
Wood anger, tree rage.
Bye.
Bye.
So I'll get emails from people about things?
Yes, tonight.
Can we all remind each other what we expect from each other?
Excerpts by tonight, and then I'll send you some of last year's stuff by tonight, and maybe we can talk tomorrow or something.
Okay.
We can do it.
Bye.
Teamwork will make this dream work. 1
hour
ago
at the Korean restaurant 2 blocks away. I feel like looking at these pages, the difference between our emails and our spoken communication is stark.
Yep.
Thank you. So we're going to do this response session similar to how we did it in the original version of this at Prelude in 2013, where as opposed to what would maybe normally happen in this situation where we would open it up to questions, we're actually going to open the entire floor up to responses in the form of statements.
Or they don't even have to be a response. They could just be a statement.
It could just be a statement about anything. No subject. And we'll just do it, the floor is open. And so you can make a statement and anyone then is free to respond to that statement, but your response also has to be in the form of a statement. So we'll just open it up and, we're not going to really moderate it in any way. You just kind of can, if anyone has anything they want to say, now you can say it.
Yeah, I was very interested in what you were talking about in terms of enemies. And recently, I really enjoyed the controversy over the flick because there was a lot of wonderful discussion back and forth about it, and I thought that was good for the theater, and you don't have that a lot, the way the theater is currently situated. So I was happy to see that kind of discussion, so I just wondered what you all thought. I don't know
It's a
if I can ask that
question. You can't ask a question.
No, that's a statement.
It's a statement. He just wondered what we thought.
That's a statement.
That's a statement. That's a statement.
Two statements. One, I find a very wistful quality about the conversation that's gone on. I just would define it in a way as wistful, number one. Number two, last Sunday, I stood on the corner of Ralph Avenue and Eastern Parkway, a sort of border between Brownsville and the gentrifying Crown Heights area. And I stood for about 15 minutes and just watched people and tried to understand what was going on there.
Well, I found the experience very interesting, but the whole time I was trying to figure out who is really talking here, and I was thinking maybe they're bluffing, maybe they're talking for themselves, and also I'm looking at the picture and I'm looking at the people. It seems that the younger people are just they're just looking at you in the pictures, but they seem to be a little less confident while reading. While the people who seem to be a little macho seem to be very shy, and they sound very assertive when they're reading.
I have a mic.
She brought her own.
I was very comforted by the Sasquatch talk because I also like them. So that's one statement. And I also wanted to say a little bit about the enemies. I was recently very excited about all the opera protesting, just because I was so happy that people were going crazy about art. So I was thinking, like, the enemies, so excited about that, but then also, like, where are all the theater protests, and, like, how do we get people to do that? That's my statements. You have ideas?
To have theater protests, you have to be angry about something very specific. So, I can't ask a question. I am angry about X, therefore I will protest theater.
I wanted to say that I found this very cathartic, and I'm glad that I came. And also, at first, I thought it was such a great idea to have people read the other people's stuff. And now I don't think that was such a good idea. Because I want to know also, I have a burning desire to know who was speaking what. And I'm wondering if you'll be publishing this so I could read it later on. No, that's a question.
No, I'm so interested in like why, I don't think this is a question, I think this is a statement. Because I think I would have the same response too that you did, but I'm also interested in why we always so badly want to know who said what. Like, we are all just like doodly-doo New York playwrights. Like, what's the big deal? Like, why is it a big deal? Like, who said what? But and yet I totally that it's interesting to me that it would be ultimately unsatisfying to not know. Like, that is interesting to me, and I'm not sure why. But I think if I were you, I would also feel unsatisfied.
At first, I thought it's really good for so many reasons because you put a different spin or non-spin on what's being said, but ultimately, I think there are bodies sitting there. I don't know. I guess it could go both ways. But
I guess maybe the ultimate desire when you go to a panel or a talk is to actually hear someone put thought into language and like see it happen in front of you and have some kind of authentic experience. And so maybe it was frustrating because we were so vulnerable during this to then like ultimately have some obfuscation of like ultimately like stop the vulnerability or not. I don't know.
Oh gosh, both ways. I think there's positives.
I don't think we would have said a lot of the things we said if we thought that people would know that we said them.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think that as a performance thing, it maybe isn't as exciting, but I think that it enabled conversation.
I think that the original intentionality too, in the context of Prelude, when this started, the original intentionality wasn't necessarily to capture like what is going on in the minds of each of these 5 people, even though they're 5 wonderful people whose thoughts we wanted, but it was almost more appealing to have the collective hive mind amalgamation of thoughts and statements that represented some moment or time that was more interesting in a way than who said what, because ultimately I thought, my response to it the first time that it happened was, well, if I knew who said what, I would also be bringing such a different context to it, to every single statement, whereas if it's all together, you can think about it in a much broader sense to some degree.
I have a weird side story. This is just collaborative art. I was listening to an old NPR story about Rivers Cuomo, who's the lead singer of Weezer. It's kind of strange, but he, for a long time, he loves music. He would just sit at home making music by himself, and he didn't want to do that. So he would put out a phrase, and then he put it out on the internet and tell people, any musical person, to add to it. And so he ended up making this one song that 20 people collaborated on, and he continues to do this, and I think it's just fascinating.
I believe that it added to the poetry that you don't know exactly who is saying what. Even though when you know who the person is who is talking, the message is more intense and more profound because the message is more full because you can read the person's expression and you have an idea of who the person is and you understand